On this episode of the Rebel Health Tribe podcast, available at rebelhealthtribe.com, we welcome Jaclyn Downs of jaclyndowns.com.
I have seen that our children are just so much more allergenic and sickly and weak and just not as robust as we used to be. And I used to sub for Montessori school, and they had a list of all of the kids and all of their allergies posted on a cabinet, and then in that cabinet was the basket full of EpiPens. I kind of, knowing what I know about nutrition and how nutrition affects, your pregnancy, I went further back into preconception and how nutrient depletions in the preconception period will manifest in the child as well. So I'm really passionate about turning that downward spiral of health and these allergenic, sickly kids back around.
That's coming up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Rebel Health Tribe podcast. I'm Joe Rignola with Michael Roseline. What's up, Michael?
Yo, man, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm tired. I'm disappointed. I'm kind of somehow directing some of that disappointment at you because you live in California. So, what happened?
Sorry about that. I don't know. I was out of town last night. I'm not looking at any of it. So probably...
Yeah. No, you're better off. You're just better off.
Probably some quality voter machine fraud is what I would expect, but I'm not going to get into that on the podcast. So
probably not today, but we could if Jaclyn wants to talk about that. Hey, Jaclyn.
Hi, how are you guys?
Doing well. Today we're joined by Jaclyn Downs. Thanks so much for being here.
How's it going, Jaclyn?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Quite the setup you've got back there.
Yeah, what do you got going on there? Is that a new gym that you're setting up or something?
This is, my office was being used, and then the other office, actually Emily Givler's office, we're underground here for the most part, and so I couldn't get any internet back in her cave, so I had to come here, and this is where they do some physical therapy and the turbosonic, I believe that's called, and stuff, so yeah, and the lighting's a little wonky too, so...
Oh, that's cool. That's all right. That's fine. I was going to ask what those spaceship-looking things were back there. So there you go. Sonic some things.
Yes, turbosonic. Cool. I used them one time a while back, so I don't have too much experience with them.
Okay. Well, for folks who are not familiar with you, just let folks know what you do and why you do it.
I am a holistic nutritionist with a focus on fertility optimization from a functional and nutrigenomic approach. That's a mouthful.
Sure. Yeah, break that down. What is nutrition something?
Nutrigenomics, yes. It's related to epigenetics, but it's more about how the nutrients affect the expression of our genes.
So like how grass-fed liver affects your genes as opposed to like Cocoa Puffs?
Somewhat. It's all tied together, but like nutrient depletions, you need certain nutritional cofactors to actually make the enzymes work that genes produce.
Got ya. Cool.
Okay.
So how did you get started in that line of work?
I do research for a naturopath here at Tree of Life, and I've been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now, and it's just fascinating, and it's really the way that things are moving in the future. Even the pharmaceutical companies are getting on board with something called pharmacogenetics. So it's basically what I do, but not with nutrients. It's more about how drugs affect the expression. And that's basically like the reason why two men, the same age, the same level of physical activity, the same kind of lifestyle, can take the same exact drug in the same dose, and one overdoses and the other doesn't feel anything. So that's all of the things in their lives that have brought them to that point, and how well or fast they metabolize that, or the other factors that could make the toxicity worse.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense,
Okay.
Yeah. So even, could that even happen in the case of like identical twins? They could react differently to the same medication?
Oh, I totally believe so because, as twins get older, they sort of look a little more different, or one might get diabetes and the other doesn't. So even though they have the same exact DNA, their diet and lifestyle and level of stress affects the expression of those genes.
What is it that made you want to focus on that, on nutrition, and particularly with fertility and pregnancy?
I had become a doula in about 2002, and just kind of started my whole progression of birth and pregnancy, and I've always been interested in nutrition. My dad is in the nutrition industry, nutritional biochemist, and it seemed to all come together. I was interested in the nutrition, and then I found the birthing realm, and then there were about 2 doulas here in Lancaster. I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, when I first moved back from San Diego, where I first started doing doula work. I moved back here to work with a midwife and apprentice with her, and work with primarily an Amish population. So I actually swore Lancaster off, but that was one factor that brought me back to Lancaster, was getting to work with the Amish people and go into their homes and really getting to know them and stuff. So I was doing research here at Tree of Life, and kind of was seeing how all of these things did affect fertility and affect your general level of health. And so I kind of curtailed them together and stopped doing the birth work so much, and more working towards feel that this is people aren't really addressing infertility or fertility or even reproductive problems or even PMS or any of those hormonal problems from an epigenetic or nutrigenomic perspective. So I feel like it's super unique, and I have a really big head start on all of the research from doing research here at Tree of Life, and it just fits, and it's so needed.
So it's interesting working with Amish. Did you notice Did you notice like less disease, or Amish people generally are less connected to technology and don't use certain medications perhaps, and ride a horse and buggy, maybe closer to the earth? Did you notice that there was actually some less disease or differences in their health working with them?
Well, there's the whole grayscale. I mean, they're just people too, and so there are they call them beachy ones that may have cell phones or drive cars or have email addresses and whatnot, and then there are the really, really strict traditional ones as well. So it's a whole scale of Amish people, but in general, I'd say there's a strong movement of a smaller population of Amish people that are really into the grass-fed and organic and stuff like that, whereas some of the Amish people I've seen at the discount grocery store, and their whole entire shopping cart is snacks.
Oh, wow.
Did you get free butter?
Yeah, that's the important question.
No, I got really cheap raw milk when I was working with the midwife. I would just go right to the farm near her office, and it was farm fresh, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually, all the meat that we get and dairy, if we get dairy, we get it from a farmer in Pennsylvania. Actually, it gets delivered here to Long Island every week. So
nice.
Stuff's legit.
Is it Lancaster Farm Fresh or no?
It's not that. I think it's Paradise Pastures.
Oh, okay. Because I know Lancaster Farm Fresh is a big CSA that goes up to New York and down to.
Oh yeah, no, it's not. It's not that one. It's Paradise Pastures is the name of the farm. It's around that area, though. I know it's around that area.
Yeah. I still get kind of excited when I see a horse and buggy on the road, and now I can be super excited because my daughters like to see them.
Yeah. Of course you would. Like, I would be so jacked to see something like that going down the street here. Instead, we see garbage on the side of our road.
Well, we see that too. I live in Lancaster City, so there's plenty of that. So going back to your original question, I have seen that our children are just so much more allergenic and sickly and weak and just not as robust as we used to be. And I have a before the bump workshop, and I start out by asking people to remember back when they were in elementary school and it was their birthday, and they could bring any snack that they wanted to school, and the whole class could eat it. And there might have been, one fat kid and one kid that couldn't sit still. Right. This day and age, we know that that's not the case anymore. And I used to sub for Montessori school, and they had a list of all of the kids and all of their allergies posted on a cabinet, and then in that cabinet was the basket full of EpiPens. Ugh. And I mean, the allergens, zinc. One person was even allergic to zinc. There were strawberries. There all kinds of stuff. Although the strawberries, I realize now, could be a histamine issue possibly. But I kind of, knowing what I know about nutrition and how nutrition affects, your pregnancy, I went further back into preconception and how, nutrient depletions in the preconception period will manifest in the child as well. So I'm really passionate about turning that downward spiral of health and these allergenic, sickly kids back around. I'm sure you've heard that quote that this is the first time in history that the parents are expected to outlive the children, because at least we had a foundation of, dinner with the family, and before genetically modified stuff was just everywhere. And it was more nutrient dense, I believe, or at least just more closer to whole foods rather than the crazy amount of processed foods that make the usual standard American diet dinner.
Yeah, I mean, I think our generation really lived through that shift. I mean, I remember as a younger kid, I think I'm older than both of you guys, but I remember as a younger kid, my parents cooking, and then the shift happened to where there was TV dinners and Cocoa Puffs and Twinkies and Doritos.
Plus, we stopped going outside and playing outside. Plus, there's a million more electronics. Plus, there's all this other, it's a storm of. Plus, there's 7 times more vaccines that kids are given. Plus, there's it's endless. You could make 1,000. You could make a chart, our childhood now, and it would be hundreds of factors.
Yes.
And I've read that too, that their life expectancy is projected to be less than ours, correct?
Yeah, well, that's, case in point, the reason why they started calling it type 2 diabetes rather than adult onset diabetes. And I don't think it's going to be completely outlandish to see somebody in their early 30s getting some sort of, open heart surgery or stents or something like that.
Sure, I actually know someone who did have that already.
Oh my goodness.
In their 30s.
Yeah, that could be your genetics, but 80 to 90% of what determines whether a gene will express is your diet and your lifestyle and your environment. And our bodies just were not designed to handle the crazy 80,000 different chemical toxins that they produce now, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and almost none are studied for safety at all. So, what could go wrong?
No, they'll just test them themselves, and they won't use them if they're bad for us.
Yeah, of course. Why would? Yeah, of course. That's what the FDA is there for, right? To protect us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was another study too, where kids who grew up more in a rural environment, maybe in a farming community, they weren't afraid of germs, weren't afraid of getting dirty, had less allergies. You mentioned allergies before, as opposed to kids growing up in a concrete city, much higher allergy rate. So really interesting
stuff. Hand sanitizer galore, hand sanitizer everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Did you grow up on the East Coast here?
I did. I actually grew up in Lancaster.
Oh, okay.
And I went to Drexel, and I ended up with a psychology degree. I was interested in nutrition, but the nutrition that they had there, I took a nutrition class as part of my prerequisites to graduate, and it was very antiquated, and even I knew, with my minimal amount of education, just from what I got from my dad, it was not the degree that I wanted, and so I have a psychology degree. And after graduating from Drexel, moved out to San Diego to further my bicycle passion, and became a bike messenger.
Really?
With a Drexel degree, yes. So
Drexel Spiders, right?
What?
Isn't it the Drexel Spiders?
Dragons.
Oh, there's another one that's the Spiders. I feel I just messed up a great opportunity to point out a mascot named the Spiders. Dragons is really cool, though, too. I know them from the NCAA basketball tournament, the few times that they made it into there.
Yeah, I heard they have a good basketball team. I wasn't too interested in it.
So you're a bike messenger?
Yeah, I was. Yep.
How was that?
It was awesome, but the first day of work is about as glorious as the last day because, it's just the same. Although, I was riding my bike in San Diego. I was in excellent shape. But yeah, there's, it's kind of the same for the 2 years that I lived out there. So, yeah, I was in Drexel. I was, biking, and I actually did bike derby there shortly. And then I was messenger in San Diego, and then I found the doula work there, and so that brought me back home. And like I said, I swore Lancaster off, but this was a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
So everything just kind of escalated from there, and then I went to school for nutrition properly, and then.
Where did you go to school for nutrition? And
well,
what did you think?
I started out in grad school and did 2 years of that. And then I went to IIN to just kind of learn the whole business end of it because, okay, so I have, this education, and how am I going to make any money? And so I had heard that they have a pretty good business in a box kind of thing. And so it just gave me a lot of marketing strategies and networking strategies and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you obviously have a very heavy science background. Was that something that you grew up with your I forget what you said your dad was, but I know. Is that something that was always an interest to you?
No, it wasn't until I started doing research for the methylation pathway and epigenetics that it
really?
I knew why, I knew vegetables were good for you and all that stuff, but that learning on a biochemical level exactly why our bodies need these vegetables and the nutrients in them and how that works in all of the different pathways in our body was fascinating to me. And so if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I would be, even dabbling in biosciences, no, I was more. I even remember myself saying that I'm interested in nutrition, but not anything on a cellular level like my dad does. I want to do more applicable stuff as far as diet goes, and just really showing people how to upgrade their diets and improve their, cholesterol and whatever, which I still do. A lot of people are starting at square one. So you definitely need to start with a diet rather than just throwing supplements at people. So I take a full health history intake of people's diet, their level of stress, what they've tried, even their parents' health history, and we really talk about ways to improve the diet because that's the foundation. That's what you do every single day, and those slow changes over time are what are going to bring lasting health, not buying even the best bottle of supplements, which I do believe in supplements, and I believe that there is a definite place for targeted supplementation, but I feel like they're called supplements, not substitutes.
Nice. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, we've talked about that on several podcasts and episodes of this, but never had it phrased so brilliantly.
Yes, exactly.
So a lot of people want to just do a pile of supplements and not change what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the easy thing, is to pop a bunch of pills. It's much harder to change your lifestyle, change your diet, ride your bike all day long.
There's a lot of hills here. You've probably gotten in pretty good shape doing that.
I miss that. I used to be able to smoke the spandex dudes up a hill. It was nice.
Yeah, it's like nothing but hills here. I mean, I live in OB, so I'm right by Point Loma. I know going up that hill on a bike would be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, literally?
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
But everything's hills here. I mean, I can just look out and see. There's only right on the coast is there any flat land.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and then on the weekends I would go ride in the canyons, which, yeah, I miss it. Yeah, I was in great shape. Lancaster's not very bike conducive, and the city's really, really small anyway. It's like 4 square miles or something like that.
How much of an influence was the science as a kid? Like, was there a focus on health when you were a kid, or did you kind of grow up like everyone else with a lot of the processed food?
Well, I didn't live with my dad. He lived in the Philly area, so I would visit him from time to time. But, you know, it was like back before the Atkins diet. My dad would say that bagels make you fat, and people are like, "Oh, your dad's a quack," and your dad would, bagels are good for your carbs, and you're supposed to eat them if you're going to exercise. And even years before that, he was all about the probiotics, and then the essential fats. And so he's always been ahead of his time. Yeah, and so I've grew up experiencing or sensing the disconnect, I guess, maybe, that like he wasn't part of that box of all of the, you know.
That must be kind of cool.
Nutrition.
So he's kind of a punk.
Kind of, yeah. And so that really influenced me into knowing what true nutrition is, and that there is a very large area of living outside of the box. And I mean, even bike messengering and playing roller derby and listening to punk rock music and that kind of stuff was always outside the norm. And so I don't, possibly that influenced me, but I mean, it's not that my dad listens to punk music, because he doesn't at all. But yeah, I've always known that I didn't really like what was in the box so much. I wanted to always explore further and further outside of the box.
Yeah, and there's more to being punk than listening to punk music too. So I think he sounds like he really kind of exemplified that.
Yeah, that actually was one of the, like, when I attended my first birth, and I read this book called Immaculate Deception, and it just talked all about, you know, the birthing in the the medicalization of birth.
Medicalization, yeah.
Yeah, and I had never considered myself an activist or feminist or anything like that, because I could always put myself in other people's shoes and see other people's point of views. But when it came to the birth, it just made so much sense to be hands off and, you know, let nature and instinct take its course, and that kind of sparked my proactive, I don't know if you want to say radicalism, you know, but just really wanting to help people to seek their own health and seek their own methods of gaining health or having the birth that they want is what it started with. And now it's, you know, it's definitely an act of defiance or radicalism to go out of your way in this society to be healthy and to take care of yourself. You have to go out of your way, and you have to seek your own information in order to have true health.
It seems like that was like there was almost like a switch that went off for you when you started getting involved as a doula and seeing the birth. Was there a gradual switch to being more proactive, being more of an activist? Because I've seen pictures of you speaking at GMO, you know, things. So I mean, was that sort of a gradual thing, or was that just a switch went off and then it was about birth, it was about GMOs, it was about food, it was about what all of this all kind of all at once?
The GMOs was more recent, I think, in the past maybe 5 years or so, but it was a pretty slow progression, even though I'd always had the basis of wanting and wanting to eat healthy, but definitely, yeah. I mean, I guess it started. I'll be honest here. I think it started in junior high when the popular preppy girls decided that they had to be mad at somebody or like hate on somebody for you know, certain periods of time, and that became me. And it didn't make sense to me. Like, why do people have to spend their time hating and ostracizing and making people feel like crap about themselves? And then
to make themselves feel better.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, you know, as an adult,
you don't understand it as a kid, though. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then you have to just go and endure it every day at school. So then I found skateboarding.
So you kind of a rebel, or kind of didn't fit into the cookie cutter sort of.
You started skateboarding in junior high school.
Yeah. It just I got into skateboarding because I was like, you bitches like are just wasting your time on all kinds of things that aren't important. Not that skateboarding was important, but it was just, you know, having something else to care about besides the store at the mall that you're supposed to buy your clothes in and that kind of stuff. Exactly. And it was just a lot more fun. And I have older brothers, and so I always kind of felt more comfortable hanging out with dudes than with girls anyway. Until roller derby, that was pretty fun because it's a lot of women that felt the same way about girls that I did.
Roller derby's awesome. I was actually the team nutrition consultant for a season for the Chicago Outfit Roller Derby League before I left Chicago for a year and went to several of their bouts, and it was awesome. And they finished this year ranked ahead of the Windy City Rollers, which is the main team in Chicago, for the first time ever. So shout out to the...
Wow.
They were always like the secondary team, and the Windy City Rollers had all the fancy shit and the fancy location and the fancy everything. And this was the first time the outfit like finished higher than them in the national rankings after the tournament. So
wow.
it was cool.
Nice.
It's cool to watch from afar. Now I'm friends with tons of them on Facebook because I was working with them before I left, and now I see all the bouts and the pictures and the results. I had no idea what the hell was going on the first time I was at a roller derby bout.
It's crazy, right?
I didn't know the rules. They do flat track, so it wasn't the thing that you've seen on TV when we were younger, Joe. It wasn't like that at all. That's like a pro wrestlingized version of roller derby.
I've got a couple of friends, believe it or not, that are roller derby people too. So it's
it's super legit. At first, because I grew up with it on TV.
Do it. There's zero chance.
No, hell no, I would have died. The first bout I was at, within 5 minutes, a girl broke her collarbone like out of her skin, and I was like, wow, this is hardcore. And they all brushed it off. Like I was in athletics in high school and a little bit in college, and if that happened like to most guys in a sporting event, they'll act all tough, but there would have been like screaming and crying and freaking out and passing out, and I would have passed out if that happened to me. And she just like stood up and was like pissed because it was the first bout of the season, and she was concerned with like having to miss the whole season, and she had been training all summer for it, and I was just like, wow, this is hardcore. And then I learned the rules and the strategy and all the stuff, and we went every time. It was super cool. So cheers to you for that.
Yeah, for real. So you got into...
What would you say?
Go ahead.
Oh, I started that in, I think, 2006 or 2007. I was one of the founding members of our league here in Lancaster. Actually, Dutchland Rollers is the name that I came up with that we voted on. So it was like the very, very beginning when we were figuring all of that team stuff out. And I coached for 2 years because some of the women that joined weren't able to skate, and I always loved roller skating. And so roller derby was just an excuse to roller skate. But again, it wasn't, field hockey or softball or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those. I just, enjoy.
No, it's like the punk version of field hockey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're all in black with crazy makeup and all kind. It was super cool. I was blown away the first time we went. Like I came home and I wouldn't stop talking about it. And I was like, I want to be a girl so I could be in the roller derby. And then they had a men's one, but it wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
At least in Chicago.
It's hardcore.
No, if the men played like the women played, some of them would die during the bout.
For sure.
At least from what I watched.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
Those days are I can finally go to a roller derby bout and not be like, oh, I'm going back. I'm totally going back.
I've seen a ton of that too. I've seen some of the women retire like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a while. I mean, it's a lot more popular now than it ever has been. But I haven't been part of the league for, I don't know, at least 5 years now or something, even more.
Uh-huh.
You could go back and fix all their nutrigenomics.
There you go.
Oh, but they definitely like their beer and cigarettes too.
That's
a lot
very
of them.
true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got into skating, and I would imagine punk right around the same time.
Yes. Yeah. 8th grade. So.
8th grade. Who were some of your bands that you listened to?
Fugazi, just all time. I know I had told you about that before.
Yeah.
Fugazi, one of my all-time favorites. I still listen to it, and actually my daughters now listen to it. I have.
You kind of reminded me when you mentioned that. It reminded me I started listening to it again after you mentioned that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had for those who don't know, my business before Mike and I joined forces was Wellness Punks, and it was as much about kind of a political statement as it was about my choice in music. But that was kind of what sparked that conversation.
Side note on that, when I found your business on Facebook and online, I was pissed and jealous that you thought of and had the name Wellness Punks before I could use something similar to that, and I didn't know Joe. I was just like, man, this guy's got the sweet business name, and I liked his Facebook page, and I was like, my business at the time was Natural Evolution, and like I liked that, but it didn't have that like edge to it like yours did, and I was like, man, I wish I would have thought of that. But now we're on the same team.
Meanwhile, by the time I was really rolling into Wellness Punks, I was listening to like Dave Matthews Band, which is like the opposite of
Did you get into the whole concert scene too in your younger days?
Oh yeah, going to shows all the time. Well, you're at that weird age where like you're not old enough to go to the bars, but you're too old for like kids stuff, and so skateboarding and going to shows was a huge part of what I did with my friends. Yeah.
That's awesome. Me too. I miss it. Like 1990, probably 6 is when I started going. I was 16, and then till about 2002, 2003, I went to like, I don't know, 1 to 2, 3 concerts a month, and now I go to like 1 concert a year if I'm lucky because I'm old.
Yeah. One of the first birthday present Marissa ever got me was tickets to see the Ramones. So I got to see the Ramones, which is pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. It was in a little club, and I don't remember, but I believe it was right around the Rockaway Beach area too, and in this club around there. So to see them and where we saw them was pretty sick.
Watch the CBGB movie on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
I just watched it. I'm not an educated punk. Mine was not punk. I was more into like hard rock and things like that. But I watched the CBGB movie, and it educated me on punk, and it was awesome.
Cool. So, awesome. Jaclyn, before we wrap up here, where can people find you online and let folks know like what's what they can expect when they go to your website and all that good stuff?
My website is just my name, jaclyndowns.com. I do have another website, mothershipwellness.com, which started out as a doula collective, and there's actually a link to that on my jaclyndowns.com website, and that now I'm not running the doula collective anymore. The reason why I started that was because I wanted to do doula work, but I didn't want to be on call all the time, so I kind of got in touch with other doulas and started something like that. Yeah, but now it's more of a doula referral service because I want to focus more on the fertility optimization. And so jaclyndowns.com, and you can either see me here in the office through Tree of Life, where they'll book, they'll schedule, and they'll take the payment and everything, or I do see my own private clients as well. Awesome. And it's not just for fertility optimization, which I would love. That's my dream, actually. When I was looking over the email that you guys sent about the interview, my dream would be for everybody that may even possibly have a child someday to really start optimizing now. Because it's not until people are having problems with getting pregnant or staying pregnant that they realize that something needs to change and they need to start eating better. And so it could really make healthier children and really bring that downward spiral, that nosedive back up if people would just be a little more mindful, optimizing their body before they conceive if they have.
Yeah, and we've talked about that when you came on for the baby series, that a lot of people, they don't start thinking about what can I do until it's, oh, I can't get pregnant, not like, oh, I'd like to have a baby in a couple years, what can I do now? And as soon as they think that a child might be in order, that's when, or in line for them, that's when they should start, or do you have a set time period that's your window, I would say?
The general rule of thumb is, 6 months, ideally 6, but I think years ahead of time. The healthier you are and the higher level of nutrient status that you have, the more you're going to have to give to your child. Because if you're a deficient adult, you're not going to have the nutrient stores to pass on to your child. So you'll get further depleted, but your child will already be born depleted, first day in this world. And so really making sure that you're not toxic and passing those toxins along to your child that are going to affect their neurological functioning. So like I said, I think in the Healthy Baby series, you could have a baby with 10 fingers and 10 toes and it's healthy, but what about all of the allergies and the learning disorders and the behavior problems and all of those kind of things that are rampant these days? And I firmly believe that a lot of those could be curtailed with leading a clean lifestyle and eating a nutrient-dense diet at least 6 months prior to conception, but ideally, just making it a way of life for that if and when you do get pregnant, things are very smooth and go how they should be.
Well, we appreciate you being involved with that baby series, and we appreciate what you do. When people go to your website, I know they can opt in and get some tips and some action steps on how they can just optimize their health. And I think this goes for whether you're planning on having kids or not. I think it's just really good, strong advice for folks.
I agree. Yeah, and I don't have too many current blogs or any articles so much on my website. So you can read some blogs there, some articles, but more currently, go to the Rebel Health Tribe website, and you can see some of my blogs there.
Yeah, thanks for that, too. The articles are awesome, so we look forward to seeing more of them. And I know we've talked about it, but we're opening up a practitioner section on our site soon, and it's been a little delayed because we're working with some business coaches now that are helping us design it in the best way possible, but you will definitely be on there, and for people that come on our site looking for one-on-one help and coaching and things, we're going to have it broken down where the best practitioners that we're affiliated with we'll have right there on our site so that people can find them and work with them directly. So probably by the time that this is live, they'll be able to find you there as well.
Yeah.
All right. Right on. Thanks, guys. I'm just loving being part of what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
We love that you're here, so thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Have a great
Thanks,
day.
Jaclyn. Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.